Hi guys, welcome to my channel Practical Reefer. My name is Mark. This is week 6 of my 20 gallon budget nano reef tank build. So every week I'm going to show you step by step in real time how to build, set up and maintain a reef tank for a whole year for just £500. So all that won't include is your fish, cleanup crew and corals, which are all personal choice. Your stand as well, you know, you might have a bit of furniture, you might want to build something, or it depends what suits where you're going, but I'm not going to pick that for you. But everything that's going into the tank, all your filtration, your lighting, the power to the tank, your scape, all the kit you'll need and everything you need to maintain it for a year will all be included for the £500. So update on my tank this week, really good news, my rock is now cycled. Had a bit of a, well, not a lazy weekend, a busy weekend, but it was lazy in terms of testing and stuff on my rock in the cupboard. So I did some testing on day 18 for me. pH was 8.0. The alkalinity had dropped. It was down to 5.4, but apparently that's relatively normal. Part of the cycling process, it does use up alkalinity, which is a bit of a shock because it was about 10.2, 10.5. It was sort of in between those two readings when I took it to start with, so it was fine. But obviously water changes and stuff will bring that back up over the next few weeks. Ammonia was down to basically nothing. Nitrites were 0, as they always have been apparently. I've never had nitrate readings, or none that I can see. And nitrate is down a bit now, it's down to 50 because I did a little bit of a water change. But the sort of day 11 I was had about 10 parts per million, day 12 was about 50, day 14 was at 100, so it was going up. Did a bit of water change, it's back down to 50, but I'll once I fill the tank, because the container that I'm cycling the rock in is about half the size, it'll be like a 50% water change when I do that. Anything else that I've missed? Oh, one thing I've never mentioned, and I haven't actually checked until tonight, is to do the level in your tank. So I checked this a few minutes ago just before we started. Try not to scratch your tank. Pretty bang on the front to back. There's probably about a millimetre. It's about 1 millimetre off, which I'm not worried about. It's not going to be an issue. If it was just slightly off side, you know, side to side, you're going to see that. And obviously there's a sort of a stability issue if it is particular level, but it's literally, if I just lift the level just that slightest bit, it's just bang on front to back, so not worried about that. So one thing I've come to realise, cycling the rock in the cupboard was really good. It gave me 3 weeks there to get all the equipment, well, paint the back of the tank was the big thing, and you know, set up the tank, let that dry, set up my filtration and stuff, and do some other bits in the cupboard, and then test my water while I'm not faffing about the tank. And I've been building other bits as well that you haven't quite seen yet. I've built a lid for the tank. I've also built a canopy, which I've built but I've not painted. That's one thing that's not included, because with the lights that I'm looking to do, you could potentially get clip-on flexible arms. You could hang them from a bracket, or if you had a shelf above, you could hang them from that. I've gone for a canopy just to block the light in and stop the light spreading out. But again, that only cost me 20-30 quid to build. And to be fair, I could have probably reused the 2 bits of MDF that came with the actual tank. I didn't realise this till after. So, but anyway, so this week my rock cycled. I'm ready to go. I'm going to fill this up just now. I'll let it run for a week once it's filled, and then I'm good to go. Next week I'm going to show you how to do a nice and simple twin wall lid. That's going to reduce our evaporation on the tank. I do have a little ATO solution, which is very budget, as you this is what the build's all about, doing it on a budget, but also it's fully spec'd as well. I'm not missing anything that people need. You've got all your testing kit, you've got all your filtration. There's 1 or 2 things that will be a little bit of a test for me as well, and it's for me to see that it's right, and if it doesn't work I'll tell you, and we'll scrap it and we'll revise the plan. But pretty happy with where I'm going so far, and I've been testing out some things as I go. I'll show you just now, but again, so I kind of veered off a little bit. Probably not the easiest way to fill the tank, because now I've pre-cycled the rock, it's in a container, it's wet. I'm going to have to kind of lift it out of a container that's wet, and I'll probably use a little tub to bring it over to here and drop it in. Maybe not the easy way. If you're even more patient than me, you could maybe just, you know, set up your tank and cycle it in the tank, but then you just need to have that patience to let the tank run and cycle. And then it saves you maybe the hassle of having to lift wet cycled rock in, and you know, some of the sand cycled in there as well. So maybe not the absolute easiest way to do it. You could potentially just give yourself an extra few weeks and do it all in the tank. I will say that, but you'll probably see me struggling away in the next few minutes of video. I'll do a little sped up thing of me filling up the tank. Other than that, so yeah, no lights needed at the moment. Filling that up there, but yeah, excited to go. Next week I'll do the lid for this, so it'll help us with evaporation and possibly reduce the need for an ATO, but I will have a top-up solution that I'll show you in a few weeks as well. And then the week after that, I will go through item by item everything you need to run this tank for the year. Quite a lot of it we've seen already. We've got to the point where we've got our tank set up, we've got all our kit ready. So as I go through that list, some of it I'll go through quite quick. I'm not going to sit and go over each bit, but you'll have seen it in previous videos, or it's something that we'll show. But yeah, pretty happy with it. What I will be using, the one thing I've maybe not talked about as much, is Maidenhead Aquatics, I believe they're called. We call them Fishkeeper Scotland up here. It's part of the Maidenhead Aquatics group. It's the fine coral sand, which is AS6020. This is a 10 kilo bag, which is about £17.50. I do have a bag of the AS6021, which is a much coarser grain. I bought bags of both. I had a little play before. I made some DIY live rock at one point, just out of interest, a few months ago, about 6 months ago now. So I'm missing a kilo or so, or a kilo and a half of the fine stuff out of my bag. So I might top it up a little bit with some of the coarser stuff. So, but literally for yourselves, what I'd recommend is just one 10 kilo bag of the AS6020. Got that right? It's the AS6020. We'll see if we use it all. We might not use every last drop of it, but we'll see how we go. I'll start filling the tank out now. I've got 20 litres stored in just a B&M 30 litre container in the bottom there, and I've got 50 litres in another spare room in the dark, and then some of the water will come over with the rock. So we'll do that just now. One thing as well, I'm going to be running the tank for a couple of weeks before I put any fish in it. I am just randomly sticking in low doses of the ammonium chloride solution, so it's less than the 4 drops per gallon. I've been putting in tiny amounts of fish food as well since day 18. We're actually on day 21 for me now. Day 20. So I'm just tossing in small amounts of ammonium chloride and very tiny amounts of Vitalis granules, very, very small amounts, just to keep a bit of ammonia in the system and keep things fed and stop the bacteria from disappearing. So we want to have it cycled in and be a couple of weeks before I've got fish in, and the bacteria will last for a fair while anyway, but I don't want to play that game and potentially lose my cycle. So we'll do that. I'll show you me filling the tank, and we'll crack on. So guys, also just quickly, I've banged in a couple of bits of the cardboard. I showed you that when I was doing the aquascape. It's probably more ideal for when it's dry, but I will just keep it in there. Not worried if it's going to get wet, or just when I'm putting the bigger bits in, just so I don't tap the glass and scratch it or anything like that. And then I'll just pull it out for when I start putting the water in, but should be fine. It'll just help me keep it safe and give me a little bit of insurance, and then I'll show you that going in just now. Just one last thing as well, guys. In all the excitement of spray painting the back of a tank and setting up a marine fish tank and cycling your live rock, don't forget to leak test your tank well before you're about to do all of this. So guys, we're on the morning after. The filters have pulled out all the sediment and cloudiness out of the water, just everything that's come off of the coral sand. And that's fine, it looks great. And my leak test worked. Something I probably should have done and I didn't think to do before, just kind of clicked last night. But to be fair, I inspected all the silicon and stuff when it arrived, and the tank looked in great condition. There looked to be no issues, but obviously when you do put the water in, that's when the pressure's applied to the silicon around all your joins and things. So that's when, if there was any issues, that's when it would happen. But absolutely no issues with the tank. It's working absolutely fine. You will see the heaters are on the front glass. I just did that as a stopgap, just to, because I was placing the rock in. I couldn't put the heaters on the back glass with it dry, they wouldn't have stuck, and then I was putting the rock in, and then when I knew that the water was going to be cloudy when I was putting in the sand and the water and stuff, and I didn't want to be playing about with that at the back, so I've just popped them on the front glass just to get up to temperature. And next time I do a water change and the water's down a bit, because I don't want to be shoving my arm in there and splashing about, so when I take some water out to do a water change, I'll get in and I'll move things about, and I'll pop the heaters on the back glass where they're meant to be. Took me 76 litres to fill the tank, so the displacement of the live rock seems to be about best part of 10-15 litres, depending on how you do it. Obviously right up to the rim, it's never going to be filled right up to the rim anyway. But it's maybe handy for me to know if I'm ever adding any treatments or feeds or anything like that. There's 76 litres. Hope never to be adding any treatments, but it might not be for bad things. It might be, you know, something to benefit the tank as opposed to treating anything. But there's 76 litres in there, and 36 litres of what I added last night was fresh salt water. So it's essentially had a 50% water change as I've done that. Turns out as well, my AdBlue containers that I collect the natural seawater in, I'd poured one of those into a bucket with the levels on it that show you how many litres is in the bucket. I actually get 12 litres into one of the AdBlue containers, so if I do one of those with one of my water changes every week, it's actually just over 13%. So I'll probably go with that, using one of the AdBlue containers every week, see how I go, and obviously I'll keep testing and things like that. But 13%, I was aiming for 10, 15, I might even go up to 20, but 13% is not a bad water change. I think it'll do the job, but we'll see how we go with that. That's just it's just what the volume of that container holds. On the sand, I only used about 5 kilos of the Fishkeeper Scotland. It's the coral sand, it's the AS6020, they call it. So it's quite a fine grade. So there's only 5 kilos there. So if you were going to do the same as me, 10 kilos is a bit overkill. You can get little 2 kilo bags of this, so 3 of those, or a 5 kilo bag, or whatever you find online of, you know, your preference of sand, then that might be the shout. You know, we buy a bit more. I mean, it's a little bit cheaper to buy the 10 kilos. I think for 6 it'll cost you about 13 or 14 pounds, and it's 17.50 for the 10. So there's a slight saving in terms of volume, but if you're never going to use the other 4 kilos, then, you know, that's something to think about. So I'm quite happy. I'm nearly ready for fish. It looks like I could actually be fishing it now. I'm going to keep the cycle going for a few weeks. I'll do another couple of videos just on, next week I'll do a video on basically that shows all of the kit that I'm talking about for £500 to run the tank for a year. So everything that you see here, all the maintenance kit, the testing kit, and sort of refills for things like the floss and all that. I'll go through that in detail next week. What I'm going to do over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to run it for 1 week without the lid, or with no lid, and just I've actually sellotaped a post-it note onto the side of the tank, which is bang on the level that I've got it at. And then after a week, I'm going to top up the tank with RODI and just see how much is evaporated off, how affected the salinity was over the course of a week, and top it off and just see that. And then what I'll do after that is I'm going to use a twin wall polycarbonate lid. So it will cover, and it will hopefully drastically reduce the evaporation, but there will still be a gap all the way around the edges, and also where the 2 hang-on back filters come in, there's a decent gap there. So there will be flow for oxygen to get onto the water surface. I don't know, I think you can quite see it there, but there is 4 sort of beautiful streams of water running from back to front. So there's a nice little agitation. It's almost like a sort of red arrows formation coming across. So there's plenty of surface agitation. I'm happy there's plenty of oxygen getting in there. This is the surface agitation I was on about. You can see that one there better. And there's 4 of these coming out of the filters. You can see them from underneath there. So plenty of oxygen getting in there, which I'm happy with. The wave maker's not even actually on at the moment. And then also at that back edge there'll always be a gap. No lid will cover that, but over the main body of the water the plan is to have a lid over there. So I'll be running the tank for 1 week without a lid and then 1 week with, and at the end of the second week I'll also do the same, see how much water evaporated off to see what difference the lid makes. But I will also have a basic ATO solution on there as well to keep it stable. So it won't just be relying on the lid and manual top offs. There will be a sort of a mini automatic top off there, but it'll be interesting to see how many litres I lose in a week with the lid on, and how long the little ATO that I'm going to use is going to last. So that's going to be interesting, and part of that is that I'm not going to put a fish into the tank while I've got the lid off, because A, the fish could jump out, obviously it would be a new fish as well, and B, the salinity is going to be rising just slightly. So while I'm doing that little bit of a test, I'm not going to be adding a fish. And same with the lid on. Obviously with the lid on it should reduce drastically, but I'm not going to add a fish again and have a slightly rising salinity. It's not great for the fish. So once I'm happy that I've done that, and it's just kind of out of my interest, and it'd be interesting for people to see how much is evaporating off in a week, which is part of that, but I'm not going to do that while a fish is in the tank there. So I'm about 2 weeks out from getting my first fish. While I'm doing that, I will be dosing just a few drops of ammonium chloride and some tiny amounts of fish food, just to keep a bit of ammonia in there and keep the bacteria fed. I think they will last for a fair while without really being fed. It's just that the bacteria tend to, I believe, multiply more when they are being fed sort of ammonia. So, but I will just keep it ticking over just to make sure that the rock stays cycled. And obviously there's more sand, and the glass doesn't have any bacteria on it at the moment as well, so that can build up over the next couple of weeks before I put the first fish in. So pretty happy that when I do get my first fish, there's not going to be any big spikes and things like that. So there will be a slight spike obviously because you're adding a fish in, but pretty happy with that. So yeah, next week I'll be going over all the kit, and then the week after I'll be doing the lid, and then after that I'll be getting into my first fish and then looking at corals. So really happy to get to this point. Everything's working great so far. I'm really happy with the filters are working. Really good surface agitation on there, which I'm happy. So yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was nothing groundbreaking today, but it's just to show where I'm at with the tank. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a little like and subscribe below, and I'll catch you all next week.